Welcome to Draw Process. I'm Ike. I'm on page 48 of First Sun and Sword today. I'm going to do the thumbnails again this time and do the whole finished page. You'll see the finished page at the end, and I'll share my thoughts and techniques while we go. And our script, page 48, sword is on the ground under King Croc's weight. His sword is to the side. He's pinned. Four claws are digging into his arm. Croc says, sword short-breathed and bird-boned like all the men. Go ahead, breathe out, then your rib cage will shatter. Sword looks like he is feeling very squished, face swelling, bloody nose maybe he's turning blue. Linger there for a moment for dramatic effect. That's what I wrote to myself as my note for this page. My script is really just a note to myself. Some people write scripts as if they're like a screenplay script format, and as if they're to communicate to someone else, to make it a good script, let's say, dramatic, interesting in itself, clear. That doesn't seem that important when it's only for myself. So it's really just a note to me. I've worked out my first panel, just what came to mind. That is the dragoness laying on the ground because she just got hit on the last page in the chest. She has fallen down. And we need to see that she's fallen and she's out. And Sun is looking to his left, which is where King Croc and Sword are. Now I considered at the time, because Sun is looking to the left, but the panel you read to the right, I was like, well, that's less than ideal. If he was looking the direction that your eye is going to go to the next panel, that might be nice. But I went with it. The composition still leads you to the right. So the lines of the tile on the floor and the weight towards the bottom and to the right, especially like a shadow there above Sun, it's putting weight on the right, and it'll kind of guide you on a curve into the second panel. And then in the second panel, King Croc's, the curve of his body is like a backwards S, like the top half of one. It kind of pulls you down and to the left to this next panel. What we have there is Sword being squished. I don't know how heavy King Croc is, but I would imagine he is heavy enough to crush a man, at least slowly. By cutting away to Sun and the dragoness, I was able to skip ahead to this moment. So I didn't have to show the fight lead to this moment where he's pinned. We've looked away for a moment, and in that time, he was able to be pinned. I think that's reasonable because his foot was injured. He was on the ground already. It's reasonable to believe that he could have been pinned. Now, if he was in his full strength on the last the time we saw him, and then suddenly he's pinned, that would feel wrong. But I feel like this is bearable to the audience. It's believable to the reader. And so this is a left-hand page, and I do think about, on the left-hand page, some panels could be full bleed. That top left or bottom left panel is on the edge of the paper, and you could just bleed it out to the edge, like blow that panel out larger. I don't like to do that unless I have a reason to do it. So I kind of like to keep my panels bounded within the panel borders, standard ones that I use, and then only blow them out when I blow out full bleed the entire section, the entire row, or the entire page, and use it not, I don't know, for maybe for size is something I'm considering, like not only for dramatic effect, not just to get variation in your sizes, and not only for the story, like a moment you want like to explode off the page, but like something you want to feel larger than the book. So if my panels generally go all the way to the edge of the paper, then I've maxed out my range on making things seem larger than the book. But if I generally keep things bounded, then I can let it expand for that last effect. So I think it's something to use sparingly in my approach anyways. And we just have 4 panels here. This gives us a nice Z. And like the bottom 2 panels are kind of a mirror, a reverse of the top 2. Okay, and now I'm working it out. I did have my thumbnail, but there's still, the goal is to approach this drawing as a fresh drawing and not just copy the thumbnail and allow a few changes to occur. It's going to look more alive that way, and give me a chance to improve what was in the thumbnail instead of just copying it. And there's the question of scale here that comes to mind, that if my figures if their head is smaller than, I use larger paper, 11 by 17, and then it's shrunk down a bit for the comic. But if their head is like smaller than, I don't know, my pinky fingernail, like a half inch. I'm just looking at my hand, but like a half inch or smaller, like I can't get any features on that face. There's no point to it. They don't need any either. And so how large do I want my figures to be on the panel? The larger I make them, the more I can capture their expression. But I'm also not going to be able to capture as much of the physical space that they're in, so that it feels grounded, so people know where they are in space. And I'm not going to be able to capture their physical body movements as well. So you'll see in this panel I have 2 figures. I've moved the camera really high up so that you can see almost all of the dragoness above Sun, because I want you to look at the dragoness and then look at Sun. Now if the camera was lower, closer to the horizon, to the floor, then she would end up on a visual plane lower than Sun. She would be on the ground and he would be standing above her. And that might make him look powerful. That might be the intention in that moment. But then you might not look at her first and then him. By arranging it this way, having the camera very high, you get to see her first and then see him. So the order in which I want you to look at this image is literally spatially done on the page. If this was in writing, it would be like, and the dragoness falls to the floor unconscious, and Sun turns his head in surprise as he sees what's happening to Sword here. The words would guide the reader through what I want them to know and think of first, and I have to do that through visual space on the page. So again, the size of figures in the panel, I have arranged them also where they break the panel border some. A little bit of the dragoness's arm falls off the page, her elbow, and then one of the Sun's legs is falling off the page, and his cloak, cape. So framing your panels well to make your figures as large as you can is nice. Another thing about having that high camera angle is that the dragoness is visually similar in size to Sun. If she was if the camera was lower, she would be shrinking, vanishing towards the vanishing point. She would be in perspective. She would have large feet and a very, you wouldn't even see her face or head, and it would be because her chest would be in the way, but she would be shrinking away and much smaller than him. This angle allows them to be similar in size so that you get a good view of both figures. If this were like a movie, the camera would rarely go up high like that. But it's not. It's not always best to think like a film. Same thing here. I've got the angle pretty high. If I had the camera low, close to the floor, Croc might have looked more large and intimidating. But it would be hard to see the visual space very well, the depth, because it would be collapsed. It would be vanishing, like in this panel. I've got a lower horizon, and so it's harder to tell the depth of things. Where Sword is at under King Croc is going to be harder to see. So now that I've established the shot, I can move in and get a close up here. And again, based on the script, the point here is he's getting squished. So he's holding his breath, he's tense, and I have to consider how much cartooning and expression am I willing to show with the way that I draw comics, with my style. And I'm trying to figure that out on the page. That was not really worked out in the thumbnail because it was such a simple thumbnail. Now I have to figure out how expressive can I make this. I'd say the details on his neck and things. He's very tense, so there's probably going to be more. You're going to see more of the tendons and muscles of his neck as he's tensing up. But I don't typically draw a whole lot of those little details, so I have to choose in that moment how much of those details to add for effect without losing my overall style, to have consistency in how much I show. And there's going to be a word balloon here over King Croc's arm. So you got King Croc, his head there, he speaks, the bubbles below his head, and then the next, you could almost see 3 circles there from top left to bottom right. King Croc's head, the word balloon, and Sword's head. And when it gets to the inking phase, that's usually when I don't have as many comments to make, because it's a pretty straightforward process. This is where all the decisions are being made. There's lots of things to comment on at this point in my videos. But I don't want to leave out the processing. So I am moving. It's been very busy. I have kept up doing 1 page a week, and I have kept up with sketching at least a few times, maybe 3 times a week. I feel like maybe I may have done it every day. I can't even remember. So it's been more busy, and I'm also wrapping up this story. It's also been 1 year since I started this channel. And so I've been thinking about wrapping up this issue and hitting 1 year with the channel, and moving and stuff, having me kind of on pause from my regular routines. I'm really in my head right now about what to do with this channel, and with my art and publishing and my daily practice of making comics, what to do with that. how to utilize this new office space I'm going to have most effectively. These things are in my head. And one of the things I noticed was I've been feeling almost like strange, like almost burned out with my work on comics, and kind of confused about where to go stylistically. And I realized that what's been missing for the last month or more is a story that I really want to tell, in a way, because I've written this story a year ago, and I'm going on a year of working like on this story. And maybe I've hit a year now. So even though I've made adjustments to the story as I go, I'm also aware that like I'm about to start a new story that I haven't written yet. And so I'm a little bit without a story. I'm a little bit without a guide, without purpose, even though I'm still working on this. And I realized that's what is missing, because what got me into sticking with making comics in the first place was realizing that when I have a story to tell, I will draw and I will improve, and I need to keep telling stories. And that's where my motivation comes from. And then discipline and everything follows from that. And so that's kind of what's been missing at the moment, is that purpose. So as I sit down and write the next story, I realize that's when my motivation will come back, and I start to make those initial drawings of different characters and moments that might be occurring, places. When I start putting that together, it's going to excite me, and I'm going to get back on track. So that's a nice insight to have, to realize about myself. It doesn't solve everything, because I've got to figure out what I'm doing with the publishing, the printing of this book, and this YouTube channel too. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's something I'm thinking about. And whatever it is, it won't be that I won't be stopping this channel or cutting back exactly on what I do on here. I would just be doing more. I think I'm going to be doing more and something new with the channel. So that's going to be cool to figure out. And yeah, as we ink this up, yeah. And yet, regardless of how I feel and how busy I am, getting some sketching time in this morning before I did this voiceover, I realized I had enough time to do a little bit of figure drawing. And it was nice. I just have to do that. I just have to squeeze in a few minutes here and there. It was just maybe 15 minutes, but I got 4 figures drawn, and it was interesting and reminded me of a few things. Got warmed up. So I've been enjoying manga more and more, and it's odd, because that was not my initial background in comics, but it's been becoming more and more of an influence, and it's just interesting, and I can see how my work is moving more and more towards a manga direction rather than Western comics. I don't know, it's just interesting. But there's some amazing work out there. I think part of it is that the kind of stories I want to tell now are longer, a much bigger, larger, longer story. And there's not a lot of examples of that kind of storytelling in Western comics, this kind that I'm trying to do with First Son and Sword. So I imagine that's part of it. So, Yeah, and I think also my focus on speed over quality has I'm employing even the shadows that I'm using, they're not perfectly accurate. It is graphically, stylistically communicating story more efficiently, and the further I go down that road, the more it it looks more of a manga style to me. But it's just the way I do things. It's just what my style is going to become. It's evolving. It's alive. If it was dead, then why would I keep doing this? It's living and it's changing, and it's a great thing to do. Yeah, why not participate in becoming? And so I keep coming back to it, and I keep participating, and it keeps developing and showing me something, and that makes it worthwhile. So on I keep going. This one extra moment I took here with the brush pen, I've already filled in, but I'm looking at the page I've completed. I'm looking at all the blacks I've put in, and I'm seeing if I want to adjust any, and I'm moving a little slower with that brush pen to make sure that the lines look clean. That is a nice added step that I'm putting a little more attention on than I had before. I get a nicer result there instead of going straight to white out or roughly putting a few blacks on and then having to go back and outline it with the micron pen. I just am careful with the brush and apply it as the finished additions that I want. Here the whiteout bled onto the page and smudged onto his beard. So what I was trying to slightly improve on that shadow edge there ended up not helping. And so sometimes this whiteout does not help. The pen I have with paint in it, it's so easy to use. It's tempting to use it, to overuse it. Like to see something and be like, that could be a little better. I'll just hit a little whiteout here. But it doesn't always result in a better page, and it adds time. Because sometimes I have to go 2 layers of it, or it bleeds like that, and I got to come back over it with the pen, wait for that to dry. Like it's added time for very little improvement, and so I'm realizing I need to limit my use of that, not rely on it as much. And you'll see there's that line that I just removed a little chunk of it. That white line is the edge of a floor tile underneath King Croc, and I noticed it was running all the way into King Croc's neck, and I just added some black there to separate it, to have some distance between him and that line. Just a little thing I wanted to do at the end. And that is it. The finished page 48. I said we've hit a year. I've released a video here every week, so we should be 48 weeks in. So we're just about to hit a year. YouTube told me I hit a year, so I guess I started the channel before I released the first video. I don't know how that went, but we're pretty much at a year now. And I've got 2 more pages ahead of this one. I've maintained being kind of 2 pages ahead of the video that releases, and I just kind of keep it there usually, 1 page a week. Sometimes I get 2 done. And that it's working, so we're getting there. We're this story, I don't know how much longer it's going to be exactly, but it's going to be around 60 pages, so we're getting pretty close to the end. And if you're worried about spoilers on the story, well, don't watch these videos, I guess. Just wait for the story to be done. if you prefer printed comics, you can wait for the printed comic to come out. I guess early next year we can expect that. And that's okay. Or just listen to my voiceovers without looking at it, even though sometimes I comment on the story, so that could ruin it. But the main point of these videos is for other creators, and I realized it would be best if I spoil everything to make it the most useful for creators. Anyways, be the practice of your art. Have a good week. See you next time.